Okay, when we left off yesterday, friends, Henry's guppies were taking over his room. And so now we're going to find out what happens with his guppies next. And the next part of the chapter starts with a picture, so I'll try to show it to you the best that I can. Okay. Henry was glad when summer vacation started. It took him so long to feed his fish that he no longer had time to play with the other children on Klickitat Street. He spent all his allowance on fish food, snails, and plants for his jars. He slept with his windows shut if he thought the night was going to be too cold. He wasn't going to have the fish getting sick if he could help it. All day long, the boys and girls in the neighborhood rang the doorbell and asked to see Henry's fish. Finally, his mother said, "Henry, this can't go on. You must get rid of some of those fish. You'll have to give them to your friends." Henry liked each fish so much he couldn't decide which one he liked best. They were all so lively swimming around in their fruit jars. Henry didn't see how he could part with any of them, but now that he was on the third row of jars around his room, he decided to try. He started asking his friends in the neighborhood if they would like to have some fish. Scooter didn't think he had time to take care of fish. He delivered the shopping news 2 days a week. Mary Jane said her mother wouldn't let her have any fish. Mary Jane's mother was very particular. Robert said he would rather come over and look at Henry's fish than take care of guppies on his own. Finally, Beezus said she would take some fish. Remember Beezus, Ramona's sister? Beezus's real name was Beatrice, but her little sister Ramona called her Beezus, and now everyone else did too. Beezus and Ramona already had a cat, 3 white rats, and a turtle, so one fish wouldn't make much difference. It took Henry a long time to decide which guppy to give her. Then one morning, Mrs. Huggins came home from the supermarket with 3 bags of apricots in the back seat of her car. When Henry helped her carry them into the house, she said, "Henry, run down to the basement and bring up about 20 quart jars. These apricots are so ripe I want to start canning them right away." Henry went down to the basement. He did not come back with 20 quart jars. He came back with 4. "These are all I could find, Mom," he said. "Oh dear, and one of them has a crack." Mrs. Huggins looked at the 3 lugs of apricots. Then she looked at Henry. "Henry," she said, and he knew from the way she said it, she meant whatever she was going to say. "Go to your room and bring me 17 quart jars, and don't bring me any jars with guppies in them either." "Yes, Mom," said Henry in a meek voice. He went into his room and looked at the jar of guppies. He guessed he did have too many fish, but they were such nice fish. He got down on his hands and knees to look at his pets. "Henry," his mother called, "I'm starting to pit the apricots. You'll have to hurry." "Okay." Henry took his net and started catching the smallest guppies. The only thing he could do was to move them in with the other fish. He hated to do it because the fish book said they shouldn't be crowded. When the guppies were moved, he carried the jars into the kitchen and poured the water down the sink. "I'm sorry, Henry," his mother said, "but after all, I did tell you some time ago that you couldn't go on putting guppies in fruit jars." "I know, Mom. I guess I'll have to think of something else." It took Henry the rest of the morning to feed the fish. He had to put the tiniest pinch of the finest fish food into each jar. He could hear Robert and Beezus playing cowboy in the vacant lot. Ribsy trotted into his room, watched him for a few minutes, and then went outdoors. Henry began to wish he were outdoors too, but he couldn't let his little fish go hungry. Later that afternoon, Mrs. Huggins drove downtown to pick up Henry's father after work. When they returned, Henry saw his father carrying more lugs of apricots into the kitchen. He had a feeling he knew what was coming next. It came. "Henry," his mother said, "I'm afraid I'll have to ask you for some more fruit jars." Henry sighed. "I guess I'll have to double them up for now." He started to go to his room and then turned back. "Say, Mom, are you going to can anything besides apricots this year?" "Yes, tomatoes and pears. And I thought we might go out to Mount Hood and pick huckleberries. You like huckleberry pie during the winter, don't you?" Henry certainly did like huckleberry pie. He liked it any time of year. He went to his room and moved more of the guppies. Tomatoes, pears, and huckleberries. He could see that his mother would eat all her fruit jars before the summer was over. That would leave him his original bowl and the gallon pickle jar. "Hey, Mom," he yelled. "Are you going to make dill pickles too?" "Yes, Henry." Well, there went the pickle jar. By the end of the summer, Henry would have to move the hundreds of fish he had now, and goodness knows how many more, back into the bowl. There would be so many fish there wouldn't be room for any water. That settled it. Henry decided he would have to get rid of all his guppies. He hated to do it, but if he kept even 2, he would soon be right back where he was now. It would be nice to have time to play outdoors again. Henry made up his mind to take every one of his fish back to the Lucky Dog pet shop. Maybe Mr. Pennycuff would have another sale. We'll have to see what happens next with Henry and his guppies.